PowerPoint?
I can forward it to you too, or whatever.
Or can you have it in your email?
I got
Or you could just open maybe your email and grab it. Is that the best way to do it?
I mean, you can, it's harder to navigate this if you're there.
Yeah, no, all I gotta do is just go on my email.
So if you'll, from there, you'll open it up.
Do you have it in like Google Drive or where do you have it stored?
It's just on one of my like inbox right now.
You just emailed it himself.
Oh, yep.
I email you.
Gmail.
Hey, good, how are you? And then underneath those people's.
Here?
Yeah, make that, click on this. I'll make it one versus.
This one or this one?
That one. And then, oh, right there.
This season. Sweet.
So, that is visible for it. Like a boss. Like a boss. There are a few people on the Zoom
Yes,
already,
there's a couple.
like 3 or 4, so the chat bubble, they'll run the spot.
Somebody has.
Yeah, and that's why.
It's easier to log in that way. Got it. Okay. Now, good.
No, it doesn't say that.
Hello. Thanks for participants.
How's it been going?
It's been going good. How have you been?
Good.
You left to go, were you going hunting at the time or?
Yeah.
How did that end up?
Not a great hunter. Yeah. More for the social.
You're there for the
Okay.
social aspect.
Yeah.
Where you guys go?
Blue Pale Trail, which is way the heck central northwestern Minnesota. Yeah. So I was up in Maple Grove that one day of class and then
Yeah, the order.
Yeah.
headed up straight from there.
You didn't bring any medicine back or anything?
I got some, but it wasn't,
Here.
yeah, no, it was Rogers.
Okay.
They used to have dads.
Okay.
I remember though.
Is there anyone else covered?
Here.
Adam, he's,
What did you say?
and
Nancy
then,
Kelsey.
I know someone else is coming, but she's
That was sneaky.
leaving work at noon, so she'll be coming in. Okay. Get started. Try to some other people so we can introduce that. All right, well, thank you for being here today. For those of you that, I think I've met everyone, but I'm Carly and I'm part of Team Lucky Duck, and Cole is on our team as well. And we were talking I was talking with Jessica recently and was sharing how Cole does a really good job of converting buyers out of open houses. It's something that he enjoys, Jen Source, and has been successful at in the past. And she said, "Oh, will you teach a class?" And so we said, sure. So today we kind of just broke it down what he does at open houses, and I will kind of interject with questions, and I want this to be helpful to you. So if you will walk through what we do, but certainly if you've got questions or want more information, or if there's anything that we share that you're interested in giving a copy of, like, we're happy to share any of that stuff as well. So, great.
Yeah, as Carly said, I'm Cole Caswell. Been in real estate since 2015. I worked with a different brokerage out of Rochester. That's where I got my start doing open houses a little bit. Joined Team Lucky Duck in 17 and have been doing about 20 to 25 transactions a year since then. Usually about 4 or 5 of them a year are from open houses, somewhere in that area usually. So 95% of my transactions are just from our sphere, just my past clients, any team leads, things like that. So that is where the majority of my time is spent during the weekdays and how I'm going to get most of my business. But in order to get from that 15 kind of area to get me up into the 20s, I supplemented them through open houses. What brought me to open houses was actually first when I worked for that other company, just not having a lot to do Monday through Friday. I moved from a 9-to-5 job, so I wasn't used to not having a time to show up and a time to leave. All of this flexibility was kind of different, so I would do open houses on the weekend, and to me that felt like I was logging hours, even though I don't know that I was doing it correctly. It was more wasting my own time. But the good part about open houses is they're cheap, they're free for the most part, unless you pick up any items, things like that. But in reality, it's 100% free to you. It just costs you a couple hours of your time. If you don't have your own listings yourself, we have a ton of agents in this office that all have them. So going out and just asking them, whether it's in person or over email or phone call, there's usually, I think I just looked today, we have like 19, 20 some listings in our office somewhere. So if any of those people want to have an open house for their sellers, you may be able to do that on their behalf.
And you still do that now, so that you don't have to, don't feel bad asking somebody if you're an experienced agent. It's not just new agents that are looking for open houses, so like sometimes we don't have a new listing, so.
I don't do a lot of listings. I work primarily with buyers, so most of the listings that I am holding open are not my own. So yeah, it's just picking all the ones you want and finding somebody that can do it and then seeing if that's a good fit for you. So
we'll talk through kind of how he picks them too.
Yeah. Another good part about open houses, there's cold calling and there's all this kind of stuff that you do, door knocking. But when someone comes into your open house, they obviously have already shown that they have interest in looking for a house. There's some sort of question in their mind, so it's just really uncovering that. So that's them raising their hand and saying, like, I have interest in buying a house. And just the basic one, to show commitment to your sellers. It just shows that you're trying really hard, you're trying every avenue for them. And just throwing it on the Zillow will market that there's an open house, our companies will market that there's an open house. It's just that one extra level of marketing. So that's always good for your sellers. It's your job. When I first started out, I was doing about 4 open houses a weekend, sometimes 2-3 hours at a time for each one. But like I said, I didn't have a lot going on, and I just thought the more you do, the more that I am showing up for work. I changed that strategy after a few years because I felt like I was just throwing away my weekends, things like that, and I wasn't actually getting a lot of business. And then when you overwhelm yourself on those weekends, you're not really giving the commitment and focus you should have done just to even, doing one right is better than doing 4 subpar.
And am I fair to say that you were maybe opening the house but not holding an open house?
Correct, yes.
So there's a difference between the two, right?
Again, I came from a 9-to-5 job. Sometimes I just thought you had to punch into something, and that was a waste.
And I think Keller Williams does a really good job of talking to people about, are you just opening the door and opening the house, or are you actually hosting an open house? And what's the difference, and what things can you do to like actually make this good source of lead gen for you, which you kind of figured out. So.
Yeah, and the MREA, it has that, the perfect open house. I would say that I am at about a level 5 with mine, but I feel like that works for me.
The 7 level open house.
The 7 levels, like I'm not putting out 100, well, I'll get to that in a getting ahead of myself. But really, I'm doing about 1 or 2 a weekend right now. You know, if you give yourself a Saturday or a Sunday, it gives you that day off on the weekend to spend time with your family and friends, whatever you need to do. But really, whatever you're comfortable with. Like I said, I do about 1 or 2. Spending less time to get more. So instead of just opening the door and sitting in there for 3-4 hours at a time, I'm sitting in there for an hour and a half and actually getting business out of it. If it's our listing, we always try to keep ours open because, you know, we are still buyer heavy. Carly's a little bit more in the middle, but for the most part, if I get a listing, I want to hold mine open. But if it's somebody else's listing that you're going to be holding open, being strategic on which ones you hold open, because all of them are not going to yield you the same results. The demographics, like I'm high on the buyer end and mostly for first-time home buyers. So I want to find like these price points around like the 300. You know, that number doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to find more where I think a first-time home buyer is going to be.
Like, it might be fun to hold $1 million house open, but
Yeah.
is that the buy? Like, yes, it'd be great if a buyer came through and that can happen. But if we can get like a really hot $250,000 property or a $350,000 property, we're gonna jump at that, right?
I'm gonna be busier and it's gonna be more of the clientele that I'm familiar working with. So if you are a high end, not to say that you can't do that, but you're probably gonna have less people come through. It needs to be something you speak to. So finding what your demographic is, and mostly, like Carly said, is in those price ranges, you're gonna get more people coming through when you've got a bigger buyer pool. Priced homes, making sure they're priced correctly. You know, you don't have to hold opens just to appease something like I said. Don't do it just to punch into something. Make sure if it's priced correctly and you think it's going to be busy. I mean, if it will be busy if it's priced correctly. Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
If it's overpriced, buyers will know that.
They've seen it online. They haven't booked a showing. They haven't done anything because it's overpriced. So making sure that it's, you know, do your research with that. Same with days on market. Probably want the fewer days on market, or if they had just recently done a price reduction or correction, those are going to be too many days on market. It's also going to be slower. If it's brand new to market, people are going to be excited. If it's just been recently reduced, again, you might get that new uptick of showings. It might reach a new buyer pool. Scheduling and advertising. Like I said, I do about an hour and a half. Feel like less time and busier. When you do that, it seems like people are going to show up. If you book it out for 2 hours or 3 hours, people show up right at the beginning and right at the end, and then you sit in the middle all by yourself. So it's like, why not just do an hour and a half? My usual time is about 11 to 12:30. That's my favorite time on Saturdays. However, that really is personal preference. Our other team member likes to do on Sundays at like 4 o'clock.
Something about that too, like if it's your seller, a lot of times they think like, oh, it needs to be open for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
So we tell them like, hey, we have found that most buyers come through in the first 30 minutes or the last 30 minutes. And so we have shortened our open houses to be an hour and a half, so we can expose your property, but also get as many interested people in there overlapping hopefully, so that it looks like it's a super popular property.
Yep.
So that we get as much interest as we can coming through and being like, ooh, there was a lot of people at that open house. If we like it, we've got to write an offer. Versus we sat there for 4 hours and one group paid through an hour and they were the only people when they were there. And that might happen anyways, but to Cole's point, like if we do an hour and a half, we can, you know, squeeze in a few more. So
You
if
might be
you're
able to do a second.
you're looking to do, you know, 4 open houses a weekend, if they're an hour and a half, you can absolutely do 4 open houses in a weekend. So.
Picking times that aren't gonna interfere with church, Vikings, if there's a parade of homes going on or something like that, just being really strategic with when you're timing them out with other events that are going on to avoid, or other events that you should be collaborating with. If it's like a
Well, Parade of Homes, we were like, okay, instead of starting at 11:30, we'll start at 12, because all the Parade of Homes open at 12. So let's overlap with that, let's take advantage of people already being out.
Maybe there's a town days or something going on. Anything that you think is gonna help to get you the most
And
people.
it sounds silly, but the Vikings schedule like does impact,
I do.
and the Packers, depending on where you're at, like it does impact.
Plus, I wanna be watching the Vikings.
Yeah. I don't care. Yeah.
So that's just for me too. Your time is valuable, so make it count. That's what we're saying with basically all of this, is just being strategic with how you're picking these, how much time you're doing them, when you're doing them, where you're doing them, which ones you're doing. As far as my advertising, I Kelly puts together some links on social media.
I'll show you what they look like.
Yeah, and then door knock in the neighborhood, we'll show you this half sheet as well. I'll usually go do about 50 or 60, sometimes 100, depending on how tight the homes are in the neighborhood. It's, this is what I hand out, it's just a half sheet. It's very low pressure to door knock on someone's door and just invite them, because you're not really selling anything, so even if it has a no soliciting sign, you're truly just inviting them. And obviously you want to be face to face with them, but you can even stick it in their door too.
So there's two different, you can door knock or you can lit drop. There's two different things, right? So door knock is like I'm knocking on the door, I'm gonna talk to somebody. A lit drop is I'm leaving the literature at the house. So maybe on a no soliciting, you could leave it there if you didn't want to knock on the door. But the idea is to let everyone know that the open house is going on, but also you're prospecting for other listings, right? Because I have lived in my house for 5 years and I have never had a realtor knock on my door. So what if all of a sudden you knock on a door and they're like, oh my gosh, I was thinking of listing and these people are really going above and beyond. They're doing an open house and they're inviting all the neighbors.
Yeah, and for people who are dragging their feet with door knocking a little bit, this was a good place for me to start, because it is very low pressure. Even if you, like I said, even if it is a no soliciting, knocking and just saying like, hey, we're holding the neighbor's house open, would love to see you there if you know anybody. It's not salesy.
Yeah.
Do you remember Sarah Roseanne's Stance? Right. We were doing an open house like right after each other, right? And she was door knocking on one side, and it was a no soliciting. And that woman freaked out and called the police on her. The police came to the open house. And
So just leave a note.
yeah.
Do whatever you feel comfortable with.
I mean, she followed her out to the yard and she's like, I'm not, I'm just
How many times have you
inviting
had
you.
somebody freak out at you?
Never. But
Right.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and whatever you're comfortable with, if it just helps to just set it in there, that's fine too. Basically,
Or do nothing on that house and move to the next.
yeah, use your best judgment. Yeah. This is like one of the links that or like a example of a post we put out for social media. I actually have it linked to my website that it allows me to capture their details. If you have something like that, I highly recommend that. I sometimes don't even say the times on there. I'll just say open house and I won't add the price or anything and just get them a come see my open house, picture of the house and then a link so that they have to click it, go through a couple more steps and hopefully you can capture some information. Again, yeah, just something simple like that, but making sure you're sharing it on all your social medias, inviting your friends, things like that.
And it links back to
That one links back to me, yeah.
That's the idea.
not the list.
Correct, yep, even if it was somebody else's listing, I can pull the MLS details and put it to my website. Materials I bring with signs, the office has some signs you can borrow if you don't have any. A lot of times the listing agent may have signs, otherwise, they say to put a bunch out, I only have 4. The more the better, the more you wanna follow the MREA, the better I'm sure, but I've stuck to 4 and I plan out the routes on where I'm putting them. So beforehand, like looking at a map and picking the busy road and try to funnel them in from the busier road. So be smart about it, don't just put them in random back neighborhoods.
How often or how early do you put them out or how?
I do it about 15 minutes beforehand. I know other people put them out the morning of or the day of, or the day before, things like that. Completely up to you. Like I said, I have my 4. I'm there early for sure because no matter what
Sometimes
time
sellers wait for you too.
what's that?
Sometimes sellers wait for you.
Sellers sometimes wait for you and more, like I swear to God, every time, if you're running late, there's
Somebody
2
will be
groups sitting at the door waiting for you and you already feel silly and then you just get all stressed. So we'll kind of get into a little bit of that. But yeah, it's about, 15 minutes beforehand or so. Again, probably the earlier the better, but for me, I'm not doing open houses in my neighborhood or my block. There could be anywhere within the metro, so I'm not gonna go drive down to Savage from St. Paul and hang out for 4 hours. And this is done fine for me. Always put a sign in the driveway of the house, which is sometimes baffles me. Like I'll run out of signs and they'll be like, well, is this house open? There's no sign. It's like, well, yeah, it's got the, same picture on the open house
That's
sign
for
as the one in the
sale.
yard. It's
The
like,
one.
it's the only one for sale in the neighborhood. Yes, you're in the right spot.
I've been doing open houses for other agents, and I had to do that for myself just because my stuff's on my open house signs.
Oh,
So
Sure.
I
Yep.
ran into that early on, like on one of my first ones, I was like, oh, I suppose, because they don't see the same.
Pole signs have Zach's photo on
Yeah.
it, which is hilarious, because
And
then people
it's-
walk in and think it's him.
And it's like Zach from when he's like 26.
Yeah. 10 years ago, Zach.
But yeah, so put a sign in the driveway, start there, and then try to find a busy road. Try to link them all the way to a busy road.
And since you're doing short amount of times, if you're trying to put a couple of open houses in a day, it's helpful if you've looked ahead of time where you're gonna place those signs versus like showing up and trying to figure out where you're putting the signs,
For
like
sure.
knowing where the major roads are and like.
Yeah,
where
I
you're
always
gonna direct
plan
them.
that sometimes a week prior, so that I can rush straight in. Again, cut as much time off my day as possible. Sign-in sheet or booklets, this is the sign-in sheet we have at the open house. It has a ton of feedback. The goal for me is to try to get a phone or an email, one or the other. It's tough to get all this stuff filled out. Once they start going, they usually fill it out. But if you can just get a phone number or an email to send them a follow-up piece of information, then you have them.
Do you just have this sitting down, or do you like with their script when they come in?
We'll get to that here in a second, but yeah, I have these sitting on the counter with the open house flyers.
Okay.
Open house sheets are nothing fancy, they're just the multi-flyer that you can find on the MLS. It's just bigger photos of the place with some basic information on the home. I print out, depending on, I guess, how busy they're gonna be. Could be print out 10, could print out 25. I did one where we had 50-some people come through.
Close first open house with our team.
First time really selling in the metro area too, because I came from Rochester.
You thought it was always that
It
way, or
was
did you
like-
after?
It was
A
crazy.
month into it.
Yes, it was
It was a month in.
2017, so the market was not crazy hot yet, but it was in Richfield, right on the border of Edina. And an hour in, you called me and you're like, Carly, I'm out of the 40 sheets that I
Yeah.
printed. And so I like ran, printed more and dropped them off. But we had, what, 60 people through that open
Easily.
house?
And I picked up a buyer and sold them a house, and then they're listing this year too, so.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was crazy, but if you stick to it, it
But the thing here too is, again, especially if you're a new agent, this is printed black and white, it's the MLS form. You're not spending an hour prepping, you can, but like, most of the time, people take that sheet, they look at the information,
gets
it
crumpled up.
gets crumpled up, gets tossed in their car, like, so we wanna get them the info, we want it to look professional, but it doesn't have to be, you know, hours of your time prepping for this, right? So like, print them off and you're on your way.
I think we have no, we don't have the sheet, but you'll be able to pull it up on the MLS, it's very simple. That also has my contact information, make sure on the MLS that it's not linked to the office number, you can change that through your MLS. Make sure your number's at the bottom, your cell number, in case you forget business cards or you don't get them a business card, you can always say that my number's on there. Like most business cards and numbers that you hand them, they usually do not call you, so that's why you want to try to pull their information. Reviewing and knowing the listings, your listing and the comparables in the area is helpful because then you can speak to it. Just, you know, you only got a few minutes to capture these people's attention, so having that knowledge and being able to share with them, like what's around in the area, why you think this was priced right, things like that.
And if this isn't the right fit for them, obviously you're trying to sell that house, but if you know of another one nearby, that just shows that you're an expert in the area.
Well, and see if they don't like this one, and you know that there's 4 others for sale that are maybe similar to what they're looking for, try to set up a private showing with them that right after.
We just did that.
Yeah.
And so we called up open, somebody came through, they were unrepresented. They didn't know about that house, and then we'll say, well, there's one down the street, I can have to show it to you later on, and then show that house to you.
So that's just good to know. We already kind of talked about the sign placement, so I'm not gonna skip over that. If you need a copy of this at all, happy to share.
Email Calvin, or, you know,
Mindset, plan to be in it. So many of those days, especially my first days, when you have 6 hours of open houses scheduled Saturday and Sunday, don't want to do it. But the days that I wake up in the morning, I'm prepared, you know, got good sleep, and like literally like have to tell myself, all right, hour and a half, give it everything you got. Those are the days I've had actual success. I know that sounds corny, but I guess we're
Yeah.
Williams, we believe a lot in mindset.
well, it's like when Diana Kokoska says, like, if this is my listing, if I choose to take it, going into a listing appointment, it's the same thing. Like, I will find a buyer today if I put my mind to it. There's some chat, can you look at?
Yes, it is, would you recommend QR code, sign-in sheets, physical copies, or both?
I've only done physical copies. I don't know how to do a QR code.
I've been doing the QR code
Yeah,
and it hasn't been great
okay.
to get people to do that.
So here's what I think I want as few obstacles as possible to capture people's information, and if my parents were to walk through a house, they would have no idea what to do with a QR code.
That's my biggest
I
issue I'm
also
running into.
think, like, you want some pressure of you presenting them, could you fill this out? Versus like, here's a QR code, you can scan it and give me your stuff, right? I feel no pressure, because you're no longer looking at me telling me to do it, you know?
So we've had decent success with the paper.
Yeah, that's what I've known, and like, yeah, kind of as Kelly said, like, I like to ask, if they're not gonna grab it and start filling it out, I like to ask them, like, hey,
We'll
what's
fill it
a
out for
good, what's a good phone number for you? What's a good email for you? When you have follow-up questions, things like that.
I tend to use clipboards because like, where are you given a clipboard? For the doctor,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna fill this out. So when I tell them, you can walk around the house with it, I ask them questions and then just give it back to me at the end.
Yep.
And then they, surprisingly, they do really well.
Pretty good
with it.
success rate when it's
Yeah.
on a clipboard.
It just comes, just natural.
Right. Was there any other questions? Says that there's
Um,
3 chat sites.
No, it was me.
Okay.
I was talking to them.
Yeah, just, I don't know if they can hear that from there, but yeah, we both all said that the sign-in sheets are the best for us. We've had the most success with them, not the best. That's for everybody. Customer service attitude, during these open houses, it's not your job to sell that house to them, and really, we just want to help them. We want to come off like we are just trying to help them around this house, and so that's why it feels low pressure. It is not.
It is our job to sell the house to them, but not be salesy, if that makes sense. Like, we're here to help.
I think it takes off some of the pressure of feeling
Yes.
like you have to get something out of that person. At the very least, we should be trying to get some feedback for the seller of the house. Like, that should be your mindset. However, we all know that we're really looking for a piece of business that we can work on in the future. But knowing that up front helps, keep the immediate interpretation of yourself low pressure.
Yeah.
Like all lead generation, it's a number game. I've sat in open houses where I have 0 people come through multiple weekends in a row, and I've had a 50 to 70 person one in Ridgefield. So, let's say 6 is kind of my average number right now. Something else about this too, is over the last couple of years, with open houses, I felt like a lot of the buyers were coming in coming in represented. So I was kind of getting burnt out with them. And I think that was just because the market got so crazy that people knew that they had to be prepared and get an agent before they would be ready to actually compete in the market. However, recently, since the uptick in rates, like, I know that this spring is looking crazy again, but people are unrepresented again. And that's just been my observation. Like, I'm noticing that going out, pretty quickly if somebody's represented in an open house. They are not scared, like, get away.
Here's my realtor's card.
Yeah, exactly. And like that just says the same thing. Hit or miss, don't get discouraged. Worst case scenario, you can bring your computer, watch an hour of Netflix or something like that, or bring a book.
The other thing is though, like, we have been leveraging the open houses on our social media, so if nobody walks through, you can say like, hey, I'm hosting an open house at this date and time, and here's like a picture, put it on a reel, or like do a quick live video. Like, if you're comfortable with social media, Corey on our team is really, he's, I think, probably I'd say the best at social media, and he will like do a quick little video or so even if somebody doesn't come through, what that's telling your sphere is like, I'm a realtor, I'm busy, I'm working on the weekend, I have a cool new listing, whether it's yours or not, it gets people engaged. So think of other ways you can leverage it too, so it's still a win even if somebody doesn't walk through, right?
Yeah, and quickly on the mindset thing too, like I really just want to focus on how important that is. Like one day I actually got ready, I was dragging my feet, and I looked at my wife and I'm like, nope, not today. And I went back in, changed to a different outfit. I'm like, no, I'm getting someone today, and we ended up selling them a house 1 month after that open house. So I had to change what I was doing, because otherwise I'm just going there.
No,
You can tell
it's
that
fun
I
on the
don't want to be
weekends.
there.
That's when all the friends are, there's social things going on, some kids have stuff going on, so sometimes it's hard to like get your mind in the like.
Yeah,
open
remind
house.
yourself, an hour and a half, give it everything you got.
Yep.
Be done with it, leave it all behind.
Yep.
When you're done. Okay. During the open house, my conversation is pretty simple. I like to stand, always usually in the kitchen. That's because then I have all my papers laid out. It's kind of a good area. Everybody is going to centralize there at some point, usually they have to walk by the kitchen twice. Unless it's a split level, sometimes you might have to chase them, but most, like if it's a single level living, they're gonna enter by the kitchen, you're gonna give them the sheet and say, here's some information on the property, my name's Cole, I'll be in the kitchen if you have any questions. Then I let them take a look around, let them get comfortable. Oh, and then when they have to come back through, usually they've already walked by you a couple times. I do simple questions like, are you from the area? What's bringing you to the open house? Just very open-ended, friendly questions that anybody would want to know, or easy to answer.
How does it compare to the other ones that you've seen? We're trying to ask questions where it's not just a yes or no.
And then you'll start, how does it compare to the other open houses? And then, what was I just gonna say? I just lost my train. Sorry. You'll be able to feel, how the conversation's going with someone. You can always tell if it's like, if they want to talk or if they don't want to talk. But even the people who don't want to talk, just at the very end say, is there any feedback that I could share with my sellers that would, that I could share with them so that give them the feedback? Whatever that sounded weird, but just at least getting that so that you can pull out some information from them, positive or negative, and see if you can get another chance to have another conversation.
So we're trying to get to their motivation, and we're trying to get to the feedback for the seller, right? So why are they out looking today? What's bringing them? Have they looked at any others in the neighborhood? Like anything we can get to. If they say, yeah, we're out, we like the area. Oh, cool. What's important about, what do you like about the area? What's important about the area? Taking it to the next level. Oh, we really like the parks. Like, oh, cool. Which one's your favorite? Or why, why? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we just had our second kid. Okay, they need a bigger house, right? That's why they're out looking today.
We have some scripts that we'll share here in a little bit, but for the most part, I'm really just trying to have a conversation with them. I want them to loosen up and then start talking with me. And then the more I get them talking, the more I'm able to get their contact information.
And how do you ask for their contact information? Like if they're chatting with you and they're like, oh yeah, this is, we're out looking today, we're just kind of thinking about it, we're renting right now.
I usually go for the actual business asset that we've been doing. I try to set the buyer consultation.
Yep.
Because typically, like I said, I'm looking for first-time home buyers that haven't done this before, and I'll say something like that. We do a buyer consultation where we sit down with these people for 40 minutes to an hour, help answer any, find out a little bit more about what you're looking for, just go through the home buying process from start to finish, and answer any questions you might have about the market, or
Would that be helpful?
would that be helpful for you? And
Hardly anyone says no.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I always say it's great for first-time home buyers because right now you may not know what the process looks like. This really avoids the headache and stress that can come through this and make this easy.
We focus then on we take a more consultative approach.
Yeah.
That's what we say. We take a more consultative approach. So we'd love to sit down with you to talk through the home buying process, answer any questions you have, and come up with a game plan that makes sense for your situation. Would that be helpful for you? No, that wouldn't. Okay, then. On to the
They'll
next.
usually look at each other and be like, actually, that would be helpful. And they'll say, all right, great. What's a good phone number for you? What's a good email for you? And then just keep going until you got what you need for that information. It's all out in front of you too. And that's if they haven't written it all down themselves. But most of the time, I'll just start writing it down because you're still talking with them too. Yep. So we talked about where we stand. Don't have to be pushy. Like I said, it's a customer service approach. But a lot of these people, like I said, they're coming in, they are raising their hand to have their questions answered. And in all reality, you have all the tools that you could offer them. You could be their hero because they don't know what they're doing. Otherwise, they would have called they would have called the agent that they have not called yet to set up a private showing where they don't have to worry about talking to someone first. So there's a reason why they're there, always. If they do have an agent, they'll usually hand you their card or let them know. Just be very respectful of their agency, but always ask for the contact information for the agent so that you can follow up with that agent and then help get more feedback for your sellers.
It's nice to know if you are the other agent, if your client has gone through a house, I think. Hey, your client popped through, and all you have to do is hey, your client popped through, here's the disclosures, just want to let you know, have a great day.
We set up a nice relationship with them too, that they're gonna be thankful that you did respect their agency and that you wanted to let them know that they came through, give them their feedback. Just nice to have that working relationship. And I guess if they were ever lying, you'll be able to find out that they don't have an agent. Yeah. And if they don't have an agent, like I said, try to go for the buyer consultation. First thing they can say is no and leave, and you'll never see them again anyways. So Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Figure out what works.
Well, and it's some buy-in from them too, right? Like, if they're willing to sit down with you to do a buyer consult, then you know they've got some skin in the game as well, right?
They're very likely to
Versus
be,
just running around showing somebody who's not, you know, and then they go write an offer with somebody else, like.
are very likely going to be closing a transaction if you
Can get a buyer consult.
in an office, for sure, but even a Zoom meeting, your chances go up exponentially.
Yep.
We already talked about getting the follow-up information. Try not to let them leave without giving you at least a phone number and email. If you do have to throw them a business card, at the very, very least, do that. Give them something to call you, but they will throw your business card away. So try to get theirs.
Try to get their
something.
info.
Yeah, buyers are liars. And then just taking notes about the person, try to keep anything you can remember from them, just quick jot notes, like, I mean, people mentioned they have 2 kids, I like to remember that stuff so that when I do follow up with them, I act like I'm their best friend.
Or they are going to a hockey game later today,
How
or
was
whatever.
that?
How was the
Just
game?
write little
You know,
stuff
like,
that you think you're gonna
little
forget.
things to remind yourself about them, so when you go to follow up, it's more
It's a
personal.
very, very warm second conversation with them.
Yep.
And then if you haven't already set the buyer consultation, you should be able to do that. During the open house, take notes and feedback. I will open up a Gmail, get an email started, and I'll type group 1, I'll add that up, and then once someone comes through, the second they're leaving or they have their back turned and they're in another room, I try to type down as much as I can as possible, and that's gonna go to the listing agent at the end. Fill these in for as many groups come through. I'll have it all written out and it automatically saves to your draft in Gmail. Once you go outside, clean up your signs, just hit send the second you leave, because the listing agent who's doing it is gonna really appreciate it. They're gonna call you back to do another open house for them. They really like that. The seller is gonna be calling that listing agent almost immediately once that open house is done, figure out how it went, and that listing agent isn't gonna know until you share. So make sure you're doing that if you're doing somebody else's listing. And
And
it's
this
super
is
easy.
so much more helpful and nice to send to a seller than, hey, there were 6 groups through, some seemed interested, some were just first time
Very-
orders. To be able to, like, I literally just forward this.
Yeah.
And say like, here's all the feedback from the open house today, and it literally says, just beginning the process, didn't say much about what he thought, you know?
Whatever you can pull.
They're moving from Bloomington, they wanna get further from the metro, like, you know, they have some interest, they have an agent, like, as much detail as we could get to give back to the listing agent, and then they can do what they want with it, but it's nice to have that extra detail, and it provides, like Cole said, like, I'm gonna call somebody back to do another open house who does something like this, because that's really nice for me to be able to get
In
back to
fact,
the
she can
seller.
just be in her car and press forward to her sellers instead of,
It's timely and it's detailed.
Yeah.
So if you're giving feedback and you're hosting an open house to somebody else, like, get them that feedback as soon as you can. And the nice thing about it, if you set it up like this, you're doing it throughout the, you know, throughout the time that you're there, and it's all done by the time you're
you'll have a crazy open house where you won't be able to do it, and then, so.
Then I'll
More
be
every time,
calling
but
you,
95% of the time, that's do it pretty easily.
Yep.
And if you're me, you'll forget to send that still.
Then I'll still be calling.
Yeah, and I know we beat this like a dead horse, but the thing is you can't send this back to the client when they ask for showing time. What is your feedback, right? Because that goes directly to the client and you don't get to filter anything, right?
So I send it to the agent, because
Right.
like, I may or may not want, like, I have his contact information and I'll follow up with him and see if there's any further interest, like, I'll probably take that little sentence out, because like, we're trying to sell the house, we're not trying to pick up a buyer from the seller's perspective, right? So like, I'll leave all of, you know, leave the rest and take, but you can edit that, but Cole does a nice job normally that it's like ready to go to the seller, right? Like, even if it's some sort of negative feedback, it's worded in a way that's like, hey, you know, they were concerned about the apartment building down the street, or they were, you know, I don't know, they
Like
mentioned
the
that.
layout of the house, but it's just not gonna be a good fit for that,
Right.
something like that, yeah. But really just anything, just so that everybody has something in their hands, because, yeah, there's nothing that the seller.
It doesn't have to
any of that
be a
information.
paragraph, but if they give you a paragraph, you can write back, great. If they
These are
just-
about how long I always do them.
Yeah. And some, like, one time, I've had one came through that was like, they didn't speak much English, didn't get much feedback, like, okay, cool, like, that's at least what that was. And now, with the doorbell cameras, like, those sellers can see how many people are coming through, so as much as we can say, like, here's what they all said, that's helpful.
If you need a copy of this whole slide, or
Okay.
all the slides, yeah, sure. After the open house, you'll have your notes, you'll hopefully have some follow-up, contact information for people. I like to take the rest of the weekend off, and then get in here Monday morning and do my follow-up. Definitely contact everyone who gave you their info, and then if you do get their address, sending a thank you note. People appreciate that, even if it's just a friend of yours that came through too, it's great that they're supporting your business and always has a special touch to get something handwritten.
We're big believers in handwriting notes on our team, so you'll
Yeah.
hear that. You come to different classes, we do that a lot for different things, so.
Some of these other ideas that we've gotten creative with in the past is maybe for the first, if you do like a 2-hour open house, going and doing that door knocking and saying, for the first hour, we only want neighbors only. Maybe have some refreshments or something like that, because neighbors are super nosy and they always apologize for being nosy, but they could be your next seller, or they know someone that would wanna buy that house. So you'd be surprised how much, it's no pressure, they don't have to buy the house like the house, but
They might know someone. Right.
and they're Snoopy, like I said, so, and.
You can help pick their new neighbors.
I was gonna say, if you want a good warm up too, you're technically not selling them the house, because they already have the neighboring house, so you just chat with them and create a relationship with them. Giveaways or snacks, I don't do a lot of snacks or drinks anymore, I started out doing them, but people are different about it. But giveaways, I do like to do, if people, if you have that clipboard like Jessica had, you get all their names and numbers and say like, hey, we're gonna be giving away a $10 gift card to Starbucks. I'm gonna pick out one person if you can, your name and number. So you could do a sign like that or something that says that up front, and then they'll just quick sign their name or leave a business card or something like that. Again, I don't do that a ton, but definitely
An idea.
get creative. This one I actually do like, partner with other agents, look and find 3-5 listings that are gonna be within the area. And there could be different companies, different agents, things like that. But calling them, seeing if they wanna coordinate times, say at 11 to 1 on Saturday. Let's all 5 hold these open and try to send them through all 5. We did the one where if the people checked off all 5, they got a gift card for $5 that they wouldn't sell all 5. And
We had a
each-
listing in St. Paul that had been on the market for a while, and there was a few of them in the neighborhood that had been, and so we got together with the other agents, and we did, like, on one day, they were all open from the same time, and if there was a little sheet, I think, did they get a little
Yep,
sheet?
you just gotta print out with like the 4
With the
pictures.
4 and the addresses, and if they made it to all 4, then they got, like, entered into, there was like 4 different gift cards. And they were from local places, which was kind of a fun.
Yep, all local ones right around the area, and
We had good feedback, it's also a good way to create relationships with other co-op agents, right?
yeah, which is always a good thing.
And our seller loved it. She's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is great. This is something I've never heard of before. And like, we love that you're working with the other agents and the other listings in the neighborhood. And the cool thing about that neighborhood in St. Paul is like, they were all very different homes, right? So it's not like the townhome or the home right next door is the exact same
Yeah.
floor plan. It's $5,000 less. It's like, no, these are all very different homes. They're in about the same price point, but very different features. So that was a fun.
I thought that was super fun, and I've been trying to do it more, so,
Yeah.
sometimes they won't wanna do it, and that's okay.
Yeah, like you
But-
had a listing not long ago where across the street was also for sale. Did you guys line them up?
I asked them to coordinate it up, and,
Yeah. Anyone
our
interested?
house sold, and there's got TNAS, cause they gave up.
So, they should have coordinated with us.
I was trying to play along. Do you wanna work?
Sure, so, my maths coach kind of gave us these scripts when we were like beginning, and we've had them in our scripts folder, and I just pulled them up because I thought like this could potentially be helpful for people. But these are some of the questions that she would ask when somebody comes to an open house, and a lot of it is like trying to get to the motivation. So, like, hi, thanks so much for stopping by the open house today. What's got you out looking at homes? And like, oh, we're thinking of buying. Okay, great. Like, what's got you thinking about buying right now? Or you could just put that in the first, whatever they answer, like whatever it is. It's awesome. Well, I'd love to apply for the job to help you find the perfect home. That might be a little too pushy. Feel it
People
out.
actually really do like to just be asked.
They do. They like to be asked. Like, think about when you go shopping. Like, do you need help? Can I help? Can I take those to the fitting room for you? Like, yes. I'm not going to ask somebody to take something to the fitting room for me, but But if somebody asks me if I want that, I say yes, right?
They
So,
come up very professional and knowledgeable about the
Yeah.
job they wanna, if they're looking, they'll wanna work.
yeah, so this gets to the buyer consult really fast, but I think if you start with, this is what we start with, internalize it and make it into a conversation, it will come off really warm and welcoming. And if they tell you like, oh, we're just starting to get pre-approved, it's like, great, do you already have somebody that you're working with us with? Because if not, we have an awesome lender that I'd love to connect you with, and he does a great job and he will take great care of you. And even if you're just thinking of this right now, he could at least like help you figure out what your budget is. So that, you know, you're in your financial comfort zone, would it be okay if I connected you? So just a few little scripts, and like I said, we are happy to send these out. Sometimes people like don't want to meet for a consult. We use that script where we say like, we take a consultative approach, and I feel like people respond well to that. But this is another way to kind of say it, and it just says like, you know, that I'm more proactive and I like to show what I do behind the scenes to get deals done. And so like, I'd like to sit down with you to talk through the buying process essentially. So I won't go through all of these, but we'll leave them here. And like I said, it is a little bit more direct, but sometimes I think, especially in the Midwest, we get that a little bit more like ask for the appointment. I
Yeah.
literally had somebody call to like recruit me a few weeks ago to a different brokerage, and she like said like, oh, how's it going? Like the last time I talked to you, you said you just had a baby. I'm like, yep. I'm like, okay, well, how's that? Good. Okay, well, it sounds like things are going well. I hope you have a good rest of the day. I said to Kelly, she was in the car with me, I'm like, she called, this was a recruiting call. She didn't even ask me to join the other company. Like, she just said, how's the day? And like, okay, have a good day. Like, ugh! It's like when you ask for a buyer consult, like, okay, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Like, at least ask. To your point, like the worst they can say is no, and then at least
Well,
you've asked, right?
That's why, like, if I'm in the right, you know, because it's a weekend, you don't wanna be there, and I don't know, maybe late Friday night or something. Sometimes it's just not where you wanna be, but I'll kick myself if I didn't ever even ask for one of the people, because that was my fault. I just wasted an hour and a half of my time.
And I think you've gotten, like, from where you started to now, like, you asked for it, which is why you're closing 4 to 6 deals a year out there, because you, half the battle is just asking them to
Just do it once, yep, and then,
so, because, yeah,
well, if anybody has any questions, obviously you can follow up with us, and we can share any of that. Big takeaways is just do them, like, get one scheduled and show up with a good attitude. At the very least, that's all you need to do, and then everything else is additions that you can do to make it even better.
my thoughts would be, do a shorter, hour and a half time, come prepared to have something to take their information down with, ask them for the appointment, and do the follow-up. And you have buyers that you've met at open houses that they don't necessarily buy immediately, but a lot of times they do. Because they're out looking, and within 90 days, it's not uncommon that they're under contract on something.
Yep.
So these are hotter leads that you're gonna find other places, and they're raising their hand and coming to you. And I would say in the beginning, it's not a terrible idea to do 4 open houses. Maybe not every single weekend, maybe pick 2 weekends a month and do 4, but like hit it hard. If you're already committing part of the day, just hit it hard. Like, do that weekend, take the next weekend off, and then do the following weekend. So I think why you've been successful though is because you've become strategic about it.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't,
It's a process, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like, I'm gonna go open the door and we'll see who walks.
which is
through.
where I
It's like,
started.
Right.
That's what I used to do. We were with a discount brokerage, so we had lots of listings, and I would just roll them all open, all weekend long, and wouldn't do anything really. People would be like, how many bedrooms? I'm like, 2, I think. You know, so I've definitely put more effort into it, and that's gotten me better results.
Did you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I have started going out to visit co-op agents.
Oh.
So I go through the MLS, see has an open house that's in the South Metro that is, you know, the range that I wanna look for, like an R1, so not yet a capper. And what I started to notice was we as agents need to go look at what other agents are doing in their open houses, right? And that was a conversation I had with John is, you know, like, I said, well, you know, go in your area, right? Go see what other people are doing. And if you can go to like 5 open houses, the other thing that's gonna do is help you learn about what's on the market. So when you have a buyer, then you can talk intelligently to that and say, yeah, well, I've been into 6 homes last weekend, and here's what I found, right?
It's a great way to preview a home.
Yeah.
Without inconveniencing the seller.
And see how they do it, to be like, oh,
Any good
that's a
things
great
that you've-
idea,
Any
or,
things you've seen that we thought were really good?
not really, no.
We have, like, our lender partner has offered to come to open houses with us too. I don't know that we've, I
I
did
like
it
being
once,
by
but
myself.
yeah, you like to be by yourself. But that's an idea as well, is partner with somebody. Sometimes we will, if we learn from that Richfield one.
Those,
If it's going to be busy, we will send 2 people.
you get somebody sitting at the door, and those you actually have to take people's log or sign-in information, because when you can't keep track of that many people. That's when an iPad goes missing, so if at very least you have to blame it on the seller, needs everybody's contact, phone number and a name. One person sitting at the door getting that right away, and one person kind of escorting people around.
We also had success one time at a condo with 2 people, or was it just you? I can't
Just me, but
remember.
I sat at the door.
Yeah, he had a sign that like texts you or something when people got there, so then we captured their like phone number. Because the building was locked, so in order to like get in, they had to call or text and then, get to come down, so. Don't write off certain types of properties too, because all of a sudden I was like, ooh, this is a different way to be able to capture somebody's information.
Yeah, definitely, just like I said, that's why you spend that the week prior, making sure you're prepared. But the best success comes out of them, you asking for their contact information and then giving it to you. So stealing their phone number, you'll have something, but you're less likely to get them to be responsive. They'll answer the phone and they'll say not interested. But if they give you an email and phone, you'll be able to get them.
Yeah, there's, I was listening to the Pivot and Shift call, which everyone should be on, oh, sorry. I was listening to it last week, and there was an agent, 2 agents who were in, like super busy areas, and, one guy said he had 60 people, and what he did was he had 2 groups go in at a time. And they had a super short time that they could go in, but he gathered their information, but then he had these people on the sidewalk. Well, what does that do? That gathered more people, right? Because they're like, we gotta get in and see this place, right? But it's like, you have to have a strategy, so if it is super crazy and you don't know what's gonna happen, it's like, okay, well, I need to have a bag of stuff that I can whip out and be like, okay, text me when you're ready, or you know what I mean, whatever it is, because it'll be probably hard if you're by yourself to gather that much as well. But it's just kind of thinking outside the box, like you guys have said, be prepared and kind of know what you're getting into too.
Cool. Any other questions? We answer your question.
I just get the scripts. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
email you once we.
You do
Yeah.
Kelly at Team Lucky Duck,
Okay.
KELLY. She can get you the batch, she can get you the sign-in sheet, if you want that. Yeah. Anything else? Was this helpful? I don't know.
It was very helpful. But for the agents in the room, was it helpful?
It was helpful.
Any
Reason
other
I
things
asked
that
about
you're
this-
doing?
The sign thing, because
Yeah.
I just got a call last night at about 7:30 because I left a sign out from an open house I did.
Oh.
And she was looking for the open house, like when it will be. And that's why I was asking how long you put them out for, because it was an accident, and I'm like, what? It was a good accident.
If you
Now
can do
have,
it, I
like,
mean, I think that's what the MREA book says, it's like put them out at
100
8
signs.
AM, 100 of them out at 8 AM and have an open house at noon, but
Yeah.
I just,
Cities have like ordinances around it,
Yeah.
so I
we
just.
got one stolen.
One got stolen. Not stolen, it got picked up by the city because it was like in somewhere it wasn't supposed to be.
My sign's still out there now. I have to go pick it up.
Yeah. But, yeah, the 4 worked for me for now. If I had another person or something like that, yeah, you could, the more, what was the one that the new construction, what were the 2 big roads in Lakeville that, like, I would have loved to have gotten
Highview
both.
And, I do it 50.
So I would have loved to have more 4 signs on those ones, but I don't, so just pick one, and I switched it back and forth between.
Or if you know in advance, you could get a couple extra from the office.
Yep, office has ones, people will lend them to you, for the most part. Yeah. Or you can get the cheap ones at Menards too, that are just stick-ins, it just says like the supplemental ones. I've done that
Directional
before.
arrows.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about, is it's $16, and I was like, well, $16 for a listing, even if they throw your sign away, I feel like it's
Still
worth
kind of
it.
worth it.
Yeah.
I could buy a few more now.
That's
Yeah.
your tactic now.
Yeah.
Did you just get somebody from an open house under contract?
Yep, yeah, that was one, well, now it's almost a month ago.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
How did that one, just they walk through and you,
It was,
I don't know.
parents of the first time home buyers.
okay,
Both moms came through, and I just had a good conversation with them, didn't talk about the house at all, really like it, unless they had questions, but I was just trying to get to know them, have a conversation.
yeah,
And they're like, well, our son and daughter are looking for a house, and this is really kind of what they're looking for. And I asked them, do they have an agent, like, can I help more?
Yeah.
Like to set that first appointment.
Yeah.
And they're like, they don't, but they have all my information and said, we'll be in touch again, so.
They did.
And,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, once you get them to, you're like, well, I need to do a lot more of those. Because,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You could just get, I know it doesn't happen this way, but if you could pick up one every weekend,
but it could.
it easily could.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't. The numbers game is true, but there's no reason why it couldn't be a crazy number too, and that'd be.
The one I did just on Sunday, I now have a gentleman in the neighborhood that's moving states and is looking to list potentially soon, so I'm gonna set up a meeting with him and send a letter, and then open house sign was still out, so I now maybe have a buyer on the other side.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, they're awesome, that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
I just need to do better. The feedback form was the biggest thing that I realized, like, I thought I was doing really well at, and then I saw how much more detail you have in yours, like, how much a little bit more thorough you are in those conversations and recording those, and, yeah, I like that much.
And I think if you do it well and happening, it's a lot easier to remember all those details than like the open house is done and I'm trying to remember who was the third group that came through and what was their feedback. And sometimes you can't do that, like Cole said, if it's busy, but if there's lulls, I just find that that's an easy way to do it.
I usually have my computer open and my hotspot going, and you just do like the alt tab, so it's not you writing down the feedback, so they're not like writing about them, but they turn their back for 2 seconds, you can add another sentence.
I just use my notes app.
Yeah, perfect.
Does somebody else have something?
John said this was amazing, thank you Carly and Cole, and Lori Preston said thanks, great info, I would love the information you shared, and Brian Todd said agreed, thank you.
Awesome. We'll send it, maybe we'll send it to
Yes.
to you and then
Yes.
you can
You
send
can
it out. Okay, cool. And we're right down the hall, we're normally here, so if you ever need
Oh, yeah,
anything,
you can bug and call
you're
me
never
too.
bugging us, you can call, text, email, whatever, like, or if you're at an open house and something crazy happens.
If you ever
We'll
get
try
listening and
out.
don't wanna do an open house, I'll
What's
help you out.
Cool, you'll take your open houses. As long as it strategically fits what you're looking to do, right? It's $1 million listing that's been on for 380 days.
No, God.
Maybe not, but nothing against $1 million listings either, it's just a good example of like, I remember as a newer agent hosting like a luxury house and I thought like, oh, this would be amazing, and like one group came through, and then as I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, because this pool of buyers for this house, I'm gonna have to do something different for if I wanna get a big group of people coming through, right? Like, if it's a townhome, a $200,000 townhome, I'm gonna get a lot more people because that's a lot more affordable to a lot more people.
Here, we just had a listing for like 700 up in Maplewood area, and the people who are coming in, they have a place to sell and all this stuff. And like, it's like, that's great, they still take them on as buyers, of course, but I would so much prefer this person that's renting and has a lease up in 2 months. And they don't know that you need to get a lot of steps done, so I can, give them that sense of urgency, like, you need to meet with me yesterday, we need to be like moving and grooving if you're actually gonna be done with the lease and wanna be in a house, things like that, so, yes, just do what you're comfortable with, but for me, that just makes more sense to sell 200-300s than try to work through, somebody's gonna have to sell their $1 million house. So,
But we'll take two-sided deal.
I'll take everything, but
Yeah.
I just have better success.
When you're strategically planning, you're doing something different, got it, so, cool, all right, well, thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
awesome, thank you.
Go and check out.
So your email doesn't pop up in the TV?
It's the word, not that my other one hasn't either, but.
Wow, maybe not. Do you want us to stop this, Jason, or does it?
Yeah, hit stop share to the bottom red spot, and then it will come up there in the bottom right is end